Hello, folks. It's Dr. Beal again. This is our lessons for May 12 May 2023. And I'm going to pick up where I left off last time in John chapter 11. If you'll remember, Jesus had been on the other side of the Jordan River, and he was teaching there. He was making converts. People had come to believe in him and follow him when he got news that Lazarus, his friend, was sick. And Jesus waited around a couple of days until Lazarus had died, and then he decided to go and see his sisters. Well, he went to see Mary and Martha, which was in Bethany, which is near Jerusalem. And Martha is the first one to meet Jesus, and her first words out of her mouth are, "If you had been here, our brother wouldn't have died." And Jesus tells her that he'll live again. She said, "Yeah, I know, in the resurrection." And Jesus said, "Well, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will never die. Even if he does die, he will live." And then Mary gets Martha. Martha goes and gets Mary, and Mary comes out and she says the same thing. If you'd been here, our brother wouldn't have died. And Jesus comforts her, and he sees all the people weeping, and he himself cries. And they take Jesus to where Lazarus is buried, and the people who were there, they said, "Couldn't a man who opened the eyes of a man who was born blind have kept this man from dying?" And so that seems to be the consensus among the people, that it's Jesus's fault that Lazarus has died. Now, Jesus has already told his apostles that Lazarus is allowed to die because they were going to be able to see the glory of God. But the sisters don't know this, the people don't know this. And so they take Jesus to the graveyard, to the cemetery. It's a tomb, a cave, I would say, where not only Lazarus is laid out and buried, but where there are other people who are buried in there. By this time, their bodies have decomposed, these other people, and their bones have been collected and put into a stone box called an ossuary. But it says in John chapter 11, verse 36, Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there's a bad odor, for he's been there 4 days." Jesus, he knows what he's going to do, and he says, "Take away the stone." And Martha, the ever practical one, she said, "He's been dead 4 days. He's been in that tomb 4 days. By this time, he's starting to stink. You don't want to go in there and see the body." Jesus tells her in verse 40, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." So Martha says, "He stinks. You don't want to go in there. You don't want to open the tomb." And Jesus said, "Didn't I tell you if you just believe, you'd see the glory of God, and Jesus prayed. His prayer was, Father, I know you hear me, and I have always known that you hear me, but I'm saying this prayer so that they may know that you sent me. And here we have again this idea of Jesus coming from God, and it's all through the Gospel of John. Jesus came from God, he was sent from God, he's doing God's will. He's only saying what God told him to say. He's only doing the things that God the Father sent him to do. Verse 43 says, when he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So they opened the tomb, and it says Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Now, I've heard it said many times, and I believe it's true, that Jesus had to call him by name because there were other dead people in that tomb. And if Jesus had only said, come out, then the whole cemetery would have raised from the dead and come out. Or it may have even been the general resurrection of the dead for the whole earth if Jesus had simply said, come out. But he said, Lazarus, come out. And he did. Now, another interesting thing here is it says that Lazarus comes out of the tomb and he's bound hand and foot. He's wrapped up like a mummy. He's wrapped in linen. He's got these grave clothes on. And they even have to let him go because Jesus said, take the grave clothes off and let him go. Well, how did he get out? It says he came out. I don't know if he floated. I don't know if he came hopping out or what. But Jesus came out of the tomb. And, Lazarus came out of the tomb, and Jesus told him to take the grave clothes off and let him go. I'm going to stop right there on this little video, and I would like for you to please, if you will, do the same thing with all these videos I'm going to put on today. Short little videos. I want you to give me one preaching point, and then I want you to give me 2 or 3 sentences telling what you would say about that preaching point, and then send it to my inbox on WhatsApp. Okay, God bless.